everybody, it's Justin Berg here with Purple Care and Lawn Therapy. Today, I'm very excited about my guest, Joseph Johnson with Texas A&M. Joseph, why don't you tell us more about your position, what you do here for Texas A&M?
Sure. So I'm a program manager for the gardens here, and so basically just kind of manage all the maintenance, activities and events. Just try to provide a space for people to come out and enjoy the gardens and do some education, teaching. So help out with the faculty, things, whatever they need to make sure to have an outdoor classroom. And so that's pretty much what I do for every day. So
what a fun job. What a fun job.
So
You get to be in landscape every day.
So basically, the gardens here is my office. That's basically my office is out.
How'd you get into this line of work?
Well, it's back growing up, basically, my grandparents had a ranch outside of San Antonio, and so I spent a lot of time out there. And that's where I really got love of agriculture. And so, however, though, I wasn't sure, what part of agriculture I was in yet. But however, though, I growing up in Houston. My parents kind of saw me as working in business and, three-piece suit, working in downtown Houston, and so that's kind of how they saw me. So I kind of took a route of going to junior college first, just to kind of, again, trying to figure out what I want to do. And so I started at Tyler Junior College out of high school. And so I was there for a couple of years. That did, associate's degree in business administration, and then I transferred over to A&M. Always wanted to come to A&M, being agriculture, and so that was something I've always wanted to do, and so just got a little bit closer. But however, though, I was in College of Business and was here for about 2 years. In College of Business, doing okay. Wasn't really excited about the degree and what I was planning, but I went ahead and took a job at a bank in Houston over the summer, one summer, and that's when I really made that decision that it wasn't for me. So a little bit too much inside. I love being outside, and it just wasn't there yet. So transferred over into agriculture, but at that time I wasn't quite sure what area I wanted to go in yet. And so I was, there's a class that we all take in agriculture. It's basically a introduction class, and basically different departments will come in and they talk about that department, that degree plans and careers that are potential careers and things like that you can go through. And so, therefore, each week we met once a week. And so we had department of, say the animal science, they'll come in and talk. And now back then, this gentleman had a lot of tobacco in his mouth and jeans, and talked about animal science, and I just wasn't there yet with that, and poultry science and dairy science and all the other things. And so one day there was horticulture, and so didn't even know what that word was really. And so, but however, this person, Dr. Chris Townsend, came in and spoke about horticulture. Now, she was extremely professionally dressed, and so, and just talked about horticulture, and just seeing her professionalism already made my decision. That was it. And so, and they talked about the emphasis that they're doing in horticulture, where trying to get away from a science base, but a little bit more emphasis on different tracks that you can take for a little more niche specialties in the green industry. So like you had a landscape track or a business track or production grower track and things like that. So obviously I took the business track, being that I had a lot of business classes already underneath my belt. And so I went on through there, and I everything just felt a love with horticulture. And I felt really good about doing that, I could do agriculture in urban settings. That's kind of where I chose, is to stay with, the cities and larger towns and things like that. And so that's kind of what I did, and kind of went on into that. So right out of college, my first job was at the Dallas Arboretum Botanical Gardens up in Dallas, Texas. And so that's where I got my love for public gardens. And so
Great place to start, though.
So really great place to start, great folks there. Garden was relatively young and new, and so we were doing a lot of building, a lot of expansion was going on at the time. And so it was a really, really neat experience, and just to see the whole aspects of public gardens.
Have you been there recently?
So,
Have you been back?
oh yeah, I've been there,
Yeah.
been there many times, several times, but
Yeah.
it's nothing like the way it
Let's
was.
say it's changed, I think, from the days you were there.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually maintained around the camp house, and,
Okay.
which is the White House over there, and so I maintained that landscape around there, and so I was there for a few years, and then needed to come back to Houston, where I grew up, at, and just basically just for some family situations. And so I kind of came back to Houston, and so I took a job with University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center over in the Texas Medical Center. So and so there we were, basically I was the horticulturist for the property and for the gardens there. And so we basically what we're doing was taking the surface parking lots and changing them into gardens around the hospital and the buildings. And so that's kind of what we did, and did that for, good number of years, just trying to create an environment of care for patients and visitors who come there. A lot of times, fortunately, MD Anderson tends to be the last place of hope for a lot of folks. And so we just wanted to make a beautiful place. And so, but however, it kind of came from a study that Dr. Charles Lemater, who was the president at the time, saw this study out of A&M from Dr. Rochter from the Department of Landscape Architecture and Urban Planning, and about patient recovery of patients who overlook out their windows in their patient their patient rooms, a window that maybe looks out into an urban setting and those that look out into a green space setting. And so, and obviously, data to show that quicker recovery times was those who looked onto a green space. And so, and he wanted to take that and implement that around MD Anderson Cancer Center and around the facilities. And so, and it's part of his goal of trying to step up to make MD Anderson become a world-class center. And so obviously we can do that on the inside with, the doctors and all the programs and treatments, but also too, he wanted the facility to be world-class too as well. And that was his dream, his goal on that. And so that's what we did. We expanded all the way up to over 50 acres of property that was landscape and irrigated. And then even future MD Anderson buildings also had extensive landscapes around their buildings and facilities. And then the other hospitals in the Texas Medical Center started joining in, St. Luke's and Herman and Ben Taub, and they all started doing a lot of extensive landscaping around the hospital. And now the Texas Medical Center is a beautiful campus, and it's just in itself. So, but it was really neat, and I kind of worked a lot with our staff, just trying to, our groundskeepers, to be able to work, but also to work alongside patients and visitors that are out in the garden and be able to talk to them about gardening and because they'll come out and they're trying to get their minds off of whatever they're dealing with, and so they can come and talk about the pansies that we just planted out there, or whatever the flowers and things like that, and because gardening is
it's therapeutic.
Very, very therapeutic, and it's very popular all around the world. I mean, we had international, patients from all over the world, and they're all talking about gardening, and they always enjoy about that. So that's kind of what we did. So I was there for about 20 years doing that, and then I moved on over to Shangri-La Botanical Gardens and Nature Center over in Orange, Texas, and I was director of horticulture there.
I've not been there. I've heard about it.
Wonderful place. It's very unique, being along the swamp, and it's just a really neat place, and also a great history and story about that. So definitely, if you haven't been there, definitely go by there and visit.
I'm embarrassed to say I've not been to that one yet. I will though.
Very unique, and so. But it's a great place. It's a nonprofit private organization that maintains that. They also not only have the gardens, but also they have a museum of quite a bit of Western art, and so Native American art too as well. Kind of one of those hidden secrets. So to have a great collection there. And then also they have a theater there as well, where they give some off-Broadway shows that come through, and so it's a good way to kind of see the arts, and not, and it's, easy to park and things like that, as opposed to like in the bigger urban settings,
right.
where it's a little bit more challenging. And also they had a historical home that the family had, and it's still, everything to the period, and everything else is still all original to the family. It's there in the house, so it's a really nice place. But it's a great combination of things there in Orange, Texas, that you can go see in this little town that that typically you just don't even, you kind of bypass on the way out, going between Beaumont and Lake Charles off of Interstate 10. But it was a really neat, challenging, definitely challenging there because of it being the marsh and the hurricanes and the things like that kind of come through there, and challenging weather and so on. But it's, again, very unique. They bring a lot of school age children through there. They have some really great programs for them to basically as a outdoor classroom setting, and so there's a lot of great exposure for children to be out in nature, and so it was a really good, fun place to be at. And then from there, I kind of actually got the call to come here, and so
Your alma mater.
about this job, yeah, my alma mater, and so it's how I came to here to Texas A&M, and so I started here when the gardens were just started construction in 2016, and saw through construction of the gardens, which I kind of wanted to definitely be part of that and just kind of see where all the skeletons are buried and things like that. So, and then kind of go on from there. And then we opened up in 2018. And so we've been open a little over 6 years now. So.
Would have been, let's talk about MD Anderson. I'm going to go back to that.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm a big fan of grounding and just working the soil with your hands and the benefits of that. Walking in grass or in the landscape with bare feet, and just getting people back outside is therapeutic. I mean, the sunlight alone is actually considered to be very healthy. And so if that landscaping will get you outside for an extra, I don't care if it's 15 minutes a day, I'm all for it. Like anything we can do to make it more enticing. And I'm sure you saw that, but tell me more about that. Like, I mean, what you're doing there at MD to kind of make that happen for people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're just again, just trying to create these gardens and a lot of seating spaces, places to sit. And, we looked at a lot about, a lot of it was architecture. How do we create these rooms and get off the busy road there? Holcomb Boulevard is right in front of MD Anderson. It's a really busy road. And so we try to create these little garden room spaces that are kind of right near, not far from the doorway of the hospital, and where people can go in there and just really sit in there and be able to be in touch with nature there. And we created butterfly gardens and even plant choices, things like that, to attract pollinators, and get those type of wildlife or that type of life out in the gardens too as well. And so we did a lot of that there. And I've kind of taken that idea of, learn a lot about that even here at the gardens here at Texas A&M. And so, because the gardens here are basically, there's no gates, there's no fees or anything like that. We're always open, but we're always open to all types of students. So, I mean, it's not just horticulture students or students in agriculture, but we get students from all departments, all cross-departmental places all over the campus. And so, and whatever we can do to encourage them to touch the soil and to be part of immerse themselves in nature, that's, I mean, all about that too as well. And so, and we do that, by different ways, here, with volunteers, we have a lot of student organizations that come through there and volunteer here. And a lot of these organizations are, there's degree plans from all types of disciplines, so from College of Engineering, Arts and Sciences, business, and things like that. So they're all here. A lot of them never have put their hands in the soil really, or really put a plant in in the ground and things like that. And so we try to create those type of more than just pulling weeds, so
Sure.
for the most part. But we do talk about that. We talk about why we have weeds and things like that. And so just something that they can take back with them, and hopefully to encourage them to be outdoors and come on out here, stuff like that. So we try to, but again, I think a lot of it is really creating those spaces to attract people and to where they can, be able to feel comfortable and sit and be able to feel safe. That was really a big thing at MD Anderson, just because it's a busy place and, that Texas Medical Center. And so it's just, as long as we can try to create those inviting spaces is how we got people to come out.
I think you've done that here too. It looks nice. And I mean, I know this is still a young garden actually.
very
As far
young.
as gardens go, it's young, but I mean, it's a fact that we know that it reduces when you're out in the garden, it reduces stress. It reduces, especially like if you're in a stressful situation already at MD or anywhere, but it reduces stress, anxiety. If you want to get into the whole electron thing of, getting grounded and stuff like that, I mean, there's better health benefits to it. So there's just so many things that I can go off on that I really I don't think it's hocus pocus anymore. I think at one time, people kind of thought it was, voodoo or whatever, but now it's all this has been proven by now.
It really has. And even the students that'll even come out here in the gardens, that, there may be an engineer and they make their way all the way over here to this side of the campus, which is, completely on the opposite side of the campus, but they'll make their way over here because just to come into a green space in, at least a sizable green space that we have here. I mean, we're only 7 acres right now at the moment, but we'll be over 40 acres, in time, being a multi-phase project. But even then, what little we have here, I mean, it's enough where students they do tell me that, they say, oh yeah, I come there all the time to come study, or after a test, take a test, I come out here and just let it all go. And I says, yeah, you can, talk to the plants and, then they won't bite back, and, you can tell them all what you're going through, things like that. But we have even some nice spaces here, here in this garden where, they can get connected to Wi-Fi if they need to, and things like that. And a lot of them do. They'll come out here and study and so on. But we have some nice quiet spaces, like the overlooks the creek. It's a really nice sound. You get birds, you get the sound of the water, and so it's one of the more favorite spots that, people kind of wind down or just kind of detox themselves, from stress.
And get off your device if you can. I mean,
exactly.
I understand there's a need for it. I get it.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're in school, we got to complete our work, but just get off your device. And if we, just even the studies in schools, I mean, if they would just give kids more recesses, let them outside, the kids' grades go up every time. That's why I don't understand the whole, hey, you get 1 recess a day. I'll never understand that because I don't think it's healthy, because I don't know about you, but I'm not doing too good if I have to sit for 8 hours straight. And,
that's kind of why after, working at
a
summer during a bank,
Yeah. And you're constantly looking outside the window going, I got to get out there.
Yeah, that was actually in the basement.
Oh, even worse. Oh gosh. Yeah.
So, but also too, I think it's really, we're just starting up too as well. I mean, we're still kind of young and doing this, but we're starting to bring, grade school children here. So, pre-K all the way up to, 12th grade. And that's another thing too, just getting, those children exposed to horticulture, to land, nature, and being outdoors, and be able to plant seeds and plant, vegetables, things like that. Even try the vegetables, and things like that. So we try to grow some vegetables that we know that hopefully they can pick and try them, and so that's especially those influential years, that middle age, middle school, that's a really influential time period. If you can kind of get them interested in horticulture or outdoors and nature and stuff like that, that's kind of a good time to hook them, and then kind of go from there. With our 4-H program that we have here at A&M, that we have across the state, that's always real influential. I mean, some wonderful kids that come through that program. And
have you ever heard of Dr. Jack Cruz by chance?
No.
I know some people think he's radical, but I know he's done some studies from some of the things I've heard were with autistic kids, and he's in El Salvador. And what he's done is he's just simply got them outside in sunlight, walking around in their bare feet. But because they're very, very tactile, right? They want to touch stuff. So he got them in their bare feet. He's got them out in the sun, and they're literally seeing improvements. And they're seeing rapid improvement, like far, far faster than the traditional improvements, whatever those are. I'm not an expert in this field, and anyway, I don't want to claim to that, but it's very interesting by just simply nature. It's just simply getting them out in nature. And I mean, if you think back to whatever kind of weird, but I mean, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, we were laying on the dirt, we were. And so I think we are plants. We're like plants. We're humans,
sure.
But we need the sun. I mean, look what we're doing all day. Now we're we're inside 8 hours a day or all day. And then what do? We get on our devices at night before bed, and you get more of that blue light. And I think it's a little crazy when you think about it, but we were I mean, if you believe in some evolution, I'm not going to get into the whole evolution versus God, but if you believe in, we can prove there's been some evolution. Things have evolved, right? Whether, regardless of your beliefs, we've even seen it in plants. I mean, look at how plants have evolved. You've created plants, you've made plants evolve. Like we've grafted them. Like, hey, we made it different. But if you believe in at least some evolution, we learned how to, I mean, we were out in the sun every day. We were walked around barefooted. You think of all that, like we laid on the ground. I mean, all the things, I mean,
Yeah, there was all the interrelationship with
we
with
evolved that
everything,
way though.
with
So
everything.
it became
So,
part of like our
mhm.
species, whoever could handle that sun and being outside, that's the one that survived,
Yeah,
you know? And
yeah,
so
yeah,
you think
yeah.
about that and it's pretty interesting because now we're not in those. And I mean, now you see certain, you know, you see diseases go up. You see, you know, I mean, we're indoors all day. I mean, it's the exact opposite of because, you know, of all the technology and I think of all the advancement, which there's a lot of advancement that's good. But I guess my point is I cannot think of a more important time than right now and maybe the next 10 years. Somebody else will say the same thing, but of when landscape is important to our overall health. I think people will truly lead healthier lives by just getting back outside. And I don't think people quite, it's not just aesthetically. I think it's very important that you have a beautiful garden. I mean, do your job and keeping your space look beautiful. But it's other than aesthetic, just again, for your own health, there's a
On the health,
very
right,
big
right.
component that I think people
And I
just
think
don't
COVID
know.
showed us that, you
Yeah.
know, because that really brought a lot of people back outdoors. You know, plant sales of vegetables and things like that just went out the roof. You know, and I mean, it took years for the green industry to kind of catch that inventory back up.
Well, look what happened.
And
They told
so,
us to go inside, stay
right,
inside.
hmm
We got sicker. And then we said no. And
go
we
out
went
and go
outside.
outside, right,
We're like, well, let's go outside. And we got back. We got back. And
right.
like, that's when we
So,
started that recovery. If you look at that, it's kind of interesting. When we first went, like, everyone's got to stay indoors and just
right.
everyone stay inside your house. We got sicker.
But it got a lot of people into gardening, you know, who'd never done it before.
Correct.
You know, because they just, you know, they're, you know, and so with their lifestyles that they had, you know, they just never done that before. And so finally, when they did it, it's amazing how many people, you know, especially when I walk the dog in my neighborhood, and and they, and they talk about gardening, and they say, "Oh my gosh, we never done this before," and now we love it, and love to see grow our own vegetables and things like that. Know where it's coming from, and really know where it's coming from. So yeah, so it's really
I mean,
important. So
I'm proud of every tree I've ever planted. Like I
mhm.
still can tell you where they're at. I mean, I can drive up to them, and I think it's kind of cool. I'm hope to one day I'll drive up to a tree. It'll be 30 years from now, and I'm gonna tell my
Mhm,
kids like I
mhm,
planted that
mhm.
tree 50 years ago or 40 years ago, and look at it's that's what
I'm the same way, and just even like planting trees, for example, is that I'd put a lot of thought in where's that tree going to be planted, and how's it going to be planted, and knowing what size it's going to be, and because I don't want to plant a tree and knowing that 10 years from now it's going to have to be cut down or something
no,
like that,
no.
and so but yeah, absolutely, because you're planting the future. It's when you plant trees, you're planting the future, and and that's for people to enjoy, because trees that are old now, we've enjoying them, and that people may have planted for us, but again, we need to kind of keep that going, keep that type going. So, but speaking like, referring back on like, like going barefoot on the grass and things
Hmm.
like that. It's really interesting here because, we have a tradition here that over at it's kind of over at the MSC, or Memorial Student Center, there's actually an area there that's you're not allowed to step on the grass because it's a memorial,
Hmm.
so it's a
Sure.
respect, just to kind of respect that landscape area. And so it's really funny when I bring students over here, especially when I give them a tour or something like that, I'll walk across the grass, but the students will walk around it, and so they kind of, and I said, oh, yeah, you can come out here on the grass, but, and that's the thing I always try to encourage, it says, we're not the Memorial Student Center. You can take your shoes off, walk on the grass, have a picnic if you like on the grass, things like that. So it's kind of really interesting. Just try to, because they're so, trained not to, not to be walking on the grass. But I mean, that's respectful.
Yeah.
But again, it's just, again, try to get that connection back to nature and that touchy,
Yep.
feely,
Yeah.
and get back with it. So
Very healthy.
yeah,
Very,
get their
very
hands
healthy.
in the soil, things like that. Just try to touch it, and not use gloves and
Yeah.
things like that. So
I've never planted something and like been regretful or like planted something like been upset. I mean, every time I plant, I'm always pretty happy. Like I'm truly pleased with whatever and it's fun looking back. It's like maybe a builder, you look back and you can see what you've built, but I like with landscaping, I'm that way. I'm like, I can
Same
see
here,
what I've
same
done.
here.
I'm like, look at how, how beautiful that is now, or how's that look? But it's gratifying to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I try to find, tasks for some of our student workers or volunteers. I try to find tasks that are instant gratification because, we kind of need that for those generations.
Sure.
They kind of need that a little more quicker. And so I try to find tasks that, they can do a particular garden task or something, then they can look back and went, wow, okay, I did a part of this. I was a big part of that. Look how much better it looks now, or how much nicer it looks, and things like that. So I always try to think out of the box and try to think of tasks that can do that. Even some of our decomposed granite walkways. We rake them, and groom them, and so and it's amazing what students, they come back and they groom a little section and they look back and what they just groomed and they just went, wow. This is beautiful. It's great. It looks nice, and a little zen, and so
Yeah, and you're outside.
and they're outdoors, and they love it. So
I like it. What is your favorite plant, if I can ask? If you have one, if you have
that's
it's a tough
hard.
one.
Yeah, for a horticulturist,
Yeah,
that's kind of hard.
many, right?
But yeah, there's many. I mean, there's a lot. But I really don't have any particular plant, really favorite plants, but I mean, some of the trees I do have, some of the trees.
What's your favorite tree then?
I love the live oak tree. I love the magnolia trees. Some of these southern trees.
Yeah.
Just because I grew up here in the South, and so pecans.
Yeah,
I mean,
you definitely want the southern route.
So I went. So I typically go the southern route on that, I suppose. But for trees and some of my favorite ones, but a lot of times it was really interesting the different places I've worked, MD Anderson to, over in Orange, Texas, and out here in College Station. It's, they're all different environments, even though we're all in Texas, but it's just totally different environments, different
Sure is.
growing requirements and so on. And so things I may have liked over at Shangri-La, I can't do here,
Sure.
and I can't grow here. So I have to find a new favorite plant,
A lot
things
more
like that.
moisture over there in the air.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so, all of them all have challenges of some sort, and so, but even here in College Station, it's in the Brazos Valley, what we call is pretty challenging itself, just with our soils and our sodium-laden water and
Sure.
things like that, kind of limits us of what we can do. But
I was going to ask you, what's your biggest challenge here?
yeah, that's one of the things is here. Is our soils. Soils are very interesting here. It's
The pH too high?
very high pH, extremely high pH, and then our water, our domestic water. So this garden, this first phase of the garden, one of the objectives was to use domestic water, municipal water, and so and just kind of help create a typical aspect that you may have at your own home, because most people will be using domestic water to water their lawns and their landscaping and so on. And so that obviously makes a lot of effect. I mean, that comes naturally from the aquifer, unfortunately, that way, but it has a little bit of bicarbonate in it too as well. And sometimes I call it, College Station herbicide. Some people do call it that. But during the summer, it's obviously very difficult, with the salts and the plants, and the plants are going through a little bit of heat stress, and you got salty water that's kind of being,
My understanding that salt locks everything up in the
it
soil.
does,
So
it
it's got all the nutrients,
Yeah.
all the minerals.
and it's
so-
a high pH water too
Yes.
as well, so it just doesn't help it either. So that's one of the big challenges
Yeah.
that we have, and but other than that, it's and another challenge is mainly the maintenance, as well, trying to keep up on the maintenance. And so which is interesting here at Texas A&M is that all of our maintenance, most of all of the campus is maintained by a contract.
Sure.
And so it's having that relationship with that contractor and working with them and try to see the eye to eye on expectations and what those expectations are. So those are a little bit challenging, to get on that and try to get away from that mow, blow, and go mentality to truly a gardening, state gardening, public garden, type of mentality. And so again, it's just working with them, and so and pretty interesting is, the interesting thing, I guess, is, for me is that I'm the client, for that contract, and
It
I'm
would
out
be
here,
different,
and
yeah.
I'm out here every day, and,
So you know
and
exactly
all
what
the
needs to
time.
be done here.
Exactly. And so again, just try to, s- strong suggestions or strong guidance,
Right, right.
on what needs to be done, but not to, get in their ways and means of things, but just, to try to set those expectations,
Sure.
so that's always a little bit challenging, but
I'm excited to walk through them. You
yeah.
ready to show me?
Yes, sir. Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. So this area here is our floral border, what we call our floral border area, and this is where we do our annual or seasonal color. And I'd actually do 4 change outs a year here.
Oh, wow.
So, and I do it for each season.
Okay.
So this is our remaining. This is the last of our summer color, and actually, obviously, some of it's already starting to go down. And again, a lot of like the moss roses here, they just over time they just get tired of our water. Just because and they just get tired.
Time to turn them out.
And so therefore, actually next week being beginning of fall's coming up here, we actually will change this out to fall color.
What do you typically use for fall?
And so what I use is like marigolds and zinnias and things like that. And actually I use colors as a expression of what that season is. So I'll use golds and bronzes and yellows and things like that. So that's the color scheme I'll pick that will go in this area.
Very nice.
And then we'll change again after Thanksgiving to winter color. And that will be like pansies and alyssum and things like that. But they'll be in blues and purples and grays and whites and things like
Very
that.
nice.
So we'll try to go that. And then I'll do again in March for spring, and those are usually pastel colors.
Yeah, your petunias and stuff.
Petunias, absolutely, and so they're really great. And then we'll go into our summer color, usually around after Memorial Day and things like that. We'll change them up, to that summer color. And those are usually bright colors, and that's where you get your vinca and like here we have the
Purple fountain grass.
fountain grass, things like that. So
Yep.
those type of things. Over in the distance actually is an event lawn area. That's where we have our large tented events, like we have one coming up right now, as we have tailgates and things like that out there.
Preparing for the
And
game this weekend?
Departmental, getting all ready for the game, things like that. So the turf out there is actually on a sand cap.
Okay.
So dealing with our water here, that's one way we do is you have your native soil, then you have about 8 inches of sand, and then you have your salt on top of that.
Okay.
And so therefore it allows to leach those salts away as your water. So obviously it takes a lot more water, but also too, unfortunately it does take a lot more fertilization. But it's one way that we can actually maintain grass here.
So that's like
And
a lot like
so-
what golf courses do, don't they? Do the same thing?
Yeah, they kind of do a little bit of that too as well. So
Yeah.
exactly. And so, and it really helps here because areas where you don't do that, a lot of times if you go areas around campus, you may find bare spots, even white little crust from the salt.
Yeah.
Actually, coming up to, leaching up to the top. And actually it'll just be bare soil and so on where nothing really grows. And so this was, developed, I guess, or, few decades ago, and now it's kind of actually become a building standard. So when they build new buildings or do any renovations, if they're going to have sod, they have to be on sand cap.
No
here-
kidding.
here
And
on
that's how much soil and how much sand again?
So it's about on top of your native soil, you have about 8 inches or so
Of
of
just straight sand.
sand.
Wow. Yeah, that's not DFW. We're not doing that. So
Yeah.
we have our own issues.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
trust
yeah.
me. Every place, like you said,
Yeah,
every place has
has
their
a
own
challenge.
issues.
Has their own
you get your
challenges.
I'm always.
Absolutely.
It's always weird to see when people, or in my industry, are using fertilizers with salt in it. I'm like, what are you doing? That's. I'm like, we do not need any more salt in that soil, and you're trying to add a fertilizer that won't work. That's going to be locked up. It's going to be locked up because of that salt.
Yeah,
And people understand that you're literally adding a good thing and a very bad thing.
So we're kind of coming to one of our entrances into the gardens here, and basically we have about 21 garden themed vignettes throughout that makes up this 7 acres of the garden, of our garden, and with that there was like about 3 objectives that for this first phase of this garden, and one was being that they wanted the spaces, the garden rooms, to be small scale in size, something that will maybe fit on a sizable to maybe a residential lot.
Okay.
And so like for example, this is the Earthkind garden here that we have called, and it's again not a really big space, something that may can fit in the backyard or somebody's suburban neighborhood yard. The other objective was using native soil from the site. So we did not import any new soil or anything like that. We actually took about 2 foot of the topsoil, took that aside, put that aside of the property, and then we built the gardens with all the grading and utilities and all that stuff, and then we brought that soil back and made our landscape beds with it.
That's
Now, the only thing we did to that, we did by volume, we added about 10% of high quality compost.
sure. I was going to ask about that. I'm like, no compost at all.
And that's what most people do in their own gardens. When you start a new garden. And so with that, we and then the third objective was to use our domestic municipal water.
Okay.
And so again, because that's what most houses, especially houses that were built, say from the 90s on, here in the Bryan College Station area, a lot of them came with an irrigation,
right?
Around their houses, and so more likely most people are using that. Even though we do, they do, may come in with some rain collection or something like that, or rain harvesting, but most part, it's usually not going to be enough to sustain them all year. Or they're just going to use it for specialty crops, but more likely you're pretty much watering everything with domestic water.
Sure.
And so we want to kind of show what plants, and that's what's here in this garden, is basically in this phase, is what plants can tolerate those conditions, our climate, our soils, and our water. Okay.
So, I like it. I like this garden a lot.
So, and then we have, we do, show different rain collections and things like that. Like here, Earthkind Garden is a program with AgriLife Extension. It's about, sustainable horticulture, landscape practices and techniques, like using adaptable plants, plants that maybe are disease possessed, pest resistance, drought tolerance, things like that. So this way you minimize those resources and trying to maintain that landscape. And so this is just kind of aptly named that. So, and then we do actually have rain collection showing in this area here, but more likely if you look around, you're probably thinking of rain cisterns or rain barrels, which we don't have here. But we have it hidden in view. And so actually we're collecting rain off this roof here, comes down this rain chain, and there's a tank behind this fence here.
Smart.
And I actually got it exposed on this side. You can actually see the tank here. And it's kind of a plastic HDPE pipe type of tank. And it's kind of a modular style tank, where you can actually basically have like a 2x8 or so post, and you can set it on bricks or a curb, like we have it on a concrete curb. And these tanks actually just slide down right on it, right after another, and they all connect and they go on around. And here we have it. And what I like about this one is actually it has a kind of a threaded receptor right here that you can actually bolt on whatever facade you want on both sides. So the tank is not, sometimes I have these tanks with a imprint of like a stone or brick, and it's this reddish color, and it's just real cheesy looking. And so this is really good. You can put whatever facade.
Yeah, I like the wood better.
And actually I've seen also too where they actually were building a home, and they framed a home up and they put these tanks around the home. And then they bricked up on the outside of that, and all the downspouts from the roof goes into those tanks.
That's interesting. I've never seen that.
So it's kind of really interesting. So, and this was developed by I think a middle school student for a science project over in California.
Oh, really?
And so he designed that, and now he has a company called Water Fence, and as in one word.
Pretty cool.
And so, but it's
the
good.
Rain chain. I've never heard of that. Rain chain.
Rain chain, yeah. So instead of those rain gutters or rain
Yep.
pipe or those downspouts, you can have it actually chain, because water kind of adheres to itself, and so it kind of goes down that chain. And so it's kind of a really neat way to do that. And so, but it's
how do you use the water? Do you just hook up with a spigot over
so
here?
this one is right now it's obviously not enough. This actually section here has a capacity about 720 gallons. But so we just kind of hook up a water hose or fill up a watering can and things like that. But it can be hooked up to your irrigation system or something like that. So if you like. So, all righty.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Let's go around this way.
Good looking Texas sage.
Got a little Texas sage there. Kind of a neat plant here. Kind of a giant milkweed or crown flower is what they call it. It's Calotropis gigantea. This is real popular in the Houston area, Houston market areas. Very tropical. This actually came to us by mistake. When the gardens was being built, they were coming with it was specified actually a white colored milkweed, Asclepias, like the butterfly, like the monarchs like to be on. And however, so instead of looking at the scientific name, obviously they looked at the common name, and this is what, and they source a lot of plants out of the Houston area, and so this is what came to us. So we planted it, and I thought, well, okay, we'll just keep it, and then when it freezes out, we'll replace it then. So it's actually been,
it keeps coming back.
Keeps coming back, yeah. It'll freeze back to the ground, but it keeps coming back. It even made it through Winter Storm Uri, which we got down to 5 degrees, and it still came back.
You just cut it back. You just cut it down to like 6 inches every year.
Yep. That's
interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. But makes it really.
Does that attract the butterflies?
So not really. I think here the butterflies don't recognize this one because it's really not native to this area.
I got it.
This is more, obviously in the tropics regions, or the equator tropics, and so, but yeah, so it's not really. I haven't really seen too much of our pollinators on them. We have a little rain garden demonstration right over here, just a kind of a where it's just kind of a low spot in your yard, for example, that collects rain and then it dries up. And so we just kind of have a demonstration of that here, kind of a fun way where we have this little runnel spiraling down into it. Again, water comes off that roof, down the rain chain, fills up this little cistern and overflows on down into the rain garden. And so, there's a lot of plant material that can tolerate those conditions. So instead of spending, wet, and then it dries out and it gets wet again. And so instead of spending money to regrade or add drainage, you can actually just buy the appropriate plants, and you'll have a beautiful garden. So, and then we got some words inscribed on some stones, and that's the first verse of the Spirit of Aggieland. And
I like it. This is unique to me.
Kind of fun. It's just a fun, whimsical way.
Yeah.
So
that's very cool. Yeah, that's very unique.
So, and then we actually have a handle there. You can actually turn on the valve, and that's hooked up actually to our irrigation. So you can actually, turn this on if you want, and water comes on down, and you can actually run it, also too.
Very cool.
When it's not raining. So just to kind of do that demonstration. So, but yeah, so.
I like it. How deep is this? Is this like rock all the way down, or
no, sir? No, it's basically we have a kind of a concrete base.
Yep.
So we kind of fill it up with concrete. So it's only rock, just
it overflows and just trickles on down.
And trickles on down.
So you get a lot of rain, and off we go.
Yeah. So you could teach, we teach, people about water. It's a good way to talk about physics of water and how molecules attract to each other, and
they
so,
bond. Water. Yep.
So
that's why a damp cloth picks up more than a wet cloth or a dry cloth, because it bonds.
Exactly. Little cottage garden area right here. This is actually a new garden. This actually came in after the gardens was built. This little garden here, we have a little pot person right over there. That's actually, we named him TC for terracotta. But it's just kind of a little fun, whimsical way. But actually, this garden is a memorial garden to the Cashins, to Lou Cashin. She was an avid gardener, and this garden was located somewhere else on campus. And so, and unfortunately, that area was going under construction and renovation, and so we moved that garden to over here. And so we kind of moved it. And so I love trees with stories, like this tree right here. This is a live oak. This actually we call it the Stephen F. Austin live oak. Over in West Columbia, outside of Houston, there's a property there with several live oaks in a homestead there, and that's where Stephen F. Austin passed away, in that area, in that homestead where these oaks are. And the owner of the property actually took acorns of those oaks and germinated them and gave one to every county in Texas.
Oh.
And this is the one for Brazos County.
Oh, really?
For
our,
And so this was actually planted in the old garden, where the old location was, and we transplanted it over here.
Wow, that must have been an undertaking, because that's a good,
So yeah, using a 32-inch tree spade, and it was spaded over here and moved over here. So
you do it in October?
So yes, we did during the wintertime, right before Winter Storm Uri.
Oh, okay.
So, but it made it through.
Well,
But
they
yeah,
planted it high. You can see the root
but
flares.
we did it real high. Yeah,
They planted it correctly. I mean, that's
mm-hmm.
a lot of people think we don't
So-
plant. I always people are like, you need to plant it deeper. I'm like, no, I do not.
Oh
Like,
no,
you
no, no, no.
Do not plant it deeper.
Because it's amazing, even with speaking of planting, and what I found is nowadays with a lot of trees are planted in a bark mulch media,
Mm-hmm.
and even all the trees here, we planted them all real high.
Mm-hmm.
But that bark mulch breaks down so quickly here,
Mm-hmm.
it actually sunk the tree quicker before it got really rooted.
Right.
And so then all of our trees actually became too low.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is that bark media. So now we're kind of, when we get a containerized tree, I kind of knock that off as much as I can
Yeah.
and just plant it in the native soil that's there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I do. I just try to bare root it if I can. So,
Yep. A lot of
mhm.
people don't understand that. They
So-
think we're doing it
so-
wrong. And well, that what we call the tree volcanoes, what we call them.
Exactly. Mhm,
And people
mhm.
think that's the way to go, which you can get away with that
Yeah,
in the trees up north.
Yeah.
But not here. That's not the way you're doing it here.
Then we have our food and fiber field right over here. This is where we grow our row crops like corn and cotton, sorghum, things like that. Right now it's in fallow. Right now we'll plant some wheat here shortly when it cools down just a little bit more, and
Winter wheat?
and we'll have wheat here throughout the winter, kind of a ground cover for that. Center pivot irrigation. That's fully operational. It's one of my favorite features in the garden here, so it's kind of a neat thing. I can actually it can be operated on my smartphone.
Oh, very cool.
And so technology, that's pretty amazing on that. However, though, this is only 55 feet long. These can get up to almost
We had one of these.
almost
on
a
our
half a
farm.
mile long.
I grew up on a farm. We had a center pivot, and
So I love this
they're not cheap.
equipment. Yeah, this is really, really nice. So it's really fun and good to have. So, all right.
Very cool.
A lot of these kind of rough areas right now. This is where our wildflower areas are. So we do seed out the maroon bluebonnets.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously here on the Texas A&M campus. But right now we're getting preparation on that. So right now we're mowing really short right now, picking up all the thatch, and then we're about to put the seed out because this is the season. This is the time to put out your wildflower seeds here along the Gulf Coast. Is around September, October.
Mhm.
This is when you want to put your seed out. So anyway, so that's what they're working on right now. They're kind of preparing that. So it kind of looks a little rough right now at the moment,
Yep.
but
Sometimes you got to make it look.
but this spring
back.
it'll look really nice. So
Look
it's
gorgeous.
really popular. A lot of folks come out here and take photos and things like that. And you're not on a busy road, which is nice.
Right.
And so it's just kind of really nice. So maroon and white garden, just kind of a little fun area. We obviously had to do a little Aggie-fying here at Texas A&M, where we have plants that sports the colors of maroon or white, either in foliage or flowers and things like that. So this post oak is about 200 years old.
It's amazing.
And so give you a little bit more perspective, this tree was here already present on this site, 60 to 80 years before A&M was founded in 1876. So it's been here quite a while. So we, as post oaks, of all the oaks, they're the most sensitive trees to construction, disturbance, changes, things like that. Even though they can tolerate drought and poor soils, but it's just that change doesn't do really well. So that's why we left this natural, and that's what's unfortunately is happening here in the Brazos Valley as we're urbanizing this area. We're building amongst these trees, and then we're this could be in somebody's backyard, and they'll come in here and grade this, put that St. Augustine lawn on it, and then they start watering it with our sodium-laden water. And well, in about 5 years, that tree starts stressing and eventually dies out. And so we're seeing that everywhere. But again, they're so sensitive. You will never see one in a garden center for sale because they can't even tolerate that change being in a container. So it's going to be interesting.
They belong in the woods.
They belong in the woods, and that's really the only in woods that are not being, there's no grazing or anything like that. So it's where you allow the new.
Yeah, horses can kill a live oak. Or
yeah,
post.
yeah, they'll eat on that. So So it's just kind of, it's really interesting because now we're planting other species of trees. So it's going to be interesting, like a couple hundred years from now, what this area is going to look like, you know, as we're urbanizing and we're planting other species. But here we left it natural. Obviously, we just mowed it because, again, I have some shade tolerant seed for grasses and wildflowers that will grow underneath there that we'll put out here. So we left it to grade as it was. Unfortunately, we have a little temporary fencing around here because we had 2 springs ago, we had a windstorm that actually cracked a large limb up in there. And so we got it cabled and so on and so forth. And so we just wanted to be sure that, just for risk management, just to kind of keep people out for a little while and just as we kind of watch that limb.
You know, open it back up again, you think?
And so hopefully we will. Hopefully
Sure.
we will. So this tributary of the creek actually originates on campus. And then it goes on down by Easterwood Airport, which is right nearby us. And then
It
eventually,
originates on campus?
is it
a natural
this
spring, or-
tributary from
Really?
springs and stuff like that. More likely, today is more irrigation water, probably overflow, as well as generation plants for steam and chill water.
Okay.
And so we're probably getting water from that, that type of thing. So, and so eventually it outfalls into the Brazos River. So
Right.
now all the rocks you see, we actually added that. So what we're trying to do is kind of help manage the storm flows, for from the rainfall.
Sure.
Because we'll get quite a bit of water in here, with all the impervious surfaces we have on campus.
Right.
We'll get this will fill up, and actually it's filled up almost to this deck that we're standing on.
Really?
And
Wow.
so what's happening here is actually all the rocks in front of you is what we call a rock riffle. So upstream over to the right, you see a pool of water, and then you have a rock riffle, and we have another pool of water over downstream to the left. So when that water starts coming on down in a heavy rainstorm, it meets that pool of water, which is kind of still. So it kind of puts the brakes on the water, on that water. And then it releases it through a riffle, then it meets another pool of water, slows it down. And so we can manage it if we can just slow it down. And so we don't mind it rising. It's just we just need to slow it down where it doesn't, scour the banks and erosion and things like that. So
Yeah.
and then we're real bit about, keeping the riparian here and keeping it, intact and things like that, the riparian zone, just with all the roots. And also that helps slow down the water too as well and things like that. Plus, here you get the wildlife, you get,
Yes.
with the having all that there with the birds and raccoons and possums and squirrels and things like that. So this open field right here is actually our phase 2. It's our next phase of the garden. So as we expand and keep growing, that's what we're working on next, is kind of working on plans or a master plan on that, finishing that up.
Do you have any ideas of what you're going to do with it? Or?
So yeah, we got some ideas. A children's garden potentially can go there. Rose garden, we do a lot of rose breeding here at A&M. So we want to showcase that. A floral garden, maybe with some trials in it. An arid garden. I'm not sure what we'll call that, but just basically because as we're getting hotter and drier, we want to showcase some good looking plants to, that you can put in there. Our little vegetable garden area all through here. Again, just a small garden demonstration.
Do the students plant these?
So students do help me plant this and help also harvest as well. Now, a lot of the produce that we harvest, we actually donate it to a local food bank.
Okay.
And so usually during a warm season months, I'll maybe get a total of about 900 to 1,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
We're donated out of this little garden here. So, but we're in a transition. We're about to soon. I was just ordering
What do you typically grow
cool
in here?
season.
What type of?
So, pretty much, tomatoes and peppers. Right now we got, peppers going. We got a little bit of corn, trying to grow some corn here for the fall. We got eggplant still going right now. We actually got tobacco over in the distance. I never really grew tobacco before. So we got tobacco growing just to show, just something neat, something different. Something different, and so, a lot of your typical, warm season, and in cool season, we do a lot of leafy greens and, radishes and carrots and things like that. So, so a lot of people think the loofahs are grown in the ocean, the loofah sponge that you bathe with. Yeah. So actually it looks like a, extra large, cucumber.
But it's a loofah though, huh?
But yeah, so usually you kind of let it dry out and you let it dry out, and then you can you peel the skin when it dries out, and you
Oh,
see
there
the
it is.
sponge right underneath there. And
Look at
so, and you just shake the seeds out. You know, I usually cut the ends off. But I usually let it dry on the vine.
Yeah.
And then once we'll come and we'll cut all these off, and then I'll usually get student helps
Yeah.
to help me on that, and we'll peel it off, shake the seeds out, and we use those seeds for next year, and then we usually give away the loofahs, and so it's kind of neat. So, and we also have other things. We try to grow morning glories and other things on here,
Mhm.
some Malabar spinach and things like that. So, but yeah, it's kind of a neat.
This is very unique.
And then this will get cleaned off, and then we also do during the winter months, during the holiday break, we have holiday lights out here, and so this will all be lit up with holiday
Sure.
lights and stuff like that. So, but
That's
yeah,
cool. This is a very unique
so it gives
feature.
a nice structure. So, a little kitchen garden right here is just kind of a, you can define kitchen garden however you like, but usually I kind of think of a kitchen garden, obviously a garden by your kitchen that will have maybe herbs and vegetables, and maybe even flowers that you can cut and bring inside, things like that. So, and
Friendship beans.
yeah, yeah. So, and then we got a little pump right here. Just kids love this. We'll provide little watering cans.
Yeah.
And so this is my most well-watered garden, so I don't, these kids, the children literally love to water this garden. So,
So you've got to harvest these friendship beans every year, don't you?
yeah, we do.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah. I've actually seen them come back.
Yeah.
Um,
A little bit of a raised bed here,
Yeah.
again, unfortunately I try to do succulents and stuff this year, but they get overwatered because kids
Yeah.
the children love to water this, but it's an ADA bed where actually a wheelchair can kind of roll up underneath this and do some planting and
I
stuff
love
like
how
that.
soft
So,
the lambs here is.
but yeah, so.
really great texture, and nothing eats it, which is nice.
And then our bee and butterfly gardens, which is right
Mhm.
over here. And so, so we have weathering steel panel with bee cutouts over here, butterflies on that one. Now,
What does
those-
that do? Explain that to me.
So it doesn't mean that the bees stay over here and the
Okay,
butterflies over
all right.
there. So, but
How's
it's just that the garden is split. But basically, these are just plant material to attract, pollinators and so on. Like this African basil out here, it's just full of bees, So it's just, you can just see them humming all over it. There's just all these little
Yep.
European bees are just right over it. So we just try to plant material, seasonal and perennials, annuals and perennials, that can attract our
It's-
pollinators.
It
and so on.
saddens me when people call and say, "Hey, I've got bees all over. I need you to spray." I'm like, absolutely
No,
not.
no,
And
no,
I'm
no.
like, no. I mean, like, well, no, and people are like, well, they're, bite me. I'm like, hornets and wasps, yes. Bees are, I mean, you can see there's bees
know,
all over,
and
and
you-
I put my hand
Yeah.
here,
you
and
can-
look at that. There's a bee right next to my finger, and
Yeah.
I don't get hit.
yeah, no, they're
um,
not. They're not.
They
more.
know better.
They're more interested in the flowers than people.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good basil too, as well as culinary. You can, it has a little kind of a spicy,
Mhm.
flavor to it. So,
Kind of minty, sprite. Yeah, I like it.
But it's unique taste. So
It is.
But yeah. So then we have our vineyard. Right here we have several varieties of grapes, and some of these are like these right here in the back. There's Lamonto. Then we got
What do you do with the grapes?
Miss Blanc. Well, honestly, I would love to make wine out of them. I would love to, but unfortunately, our state bird, the mockingbird, loves grapes, and they'll actually pick it clean before
That's what I
they
was
even
wondering.
ripen.
Yeah.
So typically, this is this size here. You probably can get a case of wine from this size of a garden, but I mean, there are ways we could try to help deter the birds. Like netting,
Mhm.
so on. I did try netting one time, but again, sometimes the birds would find their way up in it. Didn't lose any birds by that, but I'd get a lot of phone calls,
Sure.
about there's a bird caught in the net, and they come out and release it, and it's all this urgency,
Right.
and so we just kind of did away with that and just let them have it. So here's our Mexican Heritage Garden. Just kind of really nice homage to our good neighbors to the south. But a lot of our plant material that we use in our landscapes actually originate from Mexico.
Mhm.
So all these plants are plants that are origin from Mexico, and sometimes that range goes up into Texas too as well.
Sure.
And that's why, so most of these plants like the salvias and mesquites and and some of the junipers and things like that, you know, the desert willows, you know, those are all plants that we normally plant in our landscapes around
Absolutely.
Texas.
I heavily use salvias.
And you probably use a
Heavily.
lot of these. Yeah.
Yep.
So it kind of makes it really nice. And so it's kind of set up in a courtyard setting.
I like it.
Where we have we've had weddings here, things like that. So here on campus, so a lot of people like to do that. So
That's cool.
nice little fountain here. Unfortunately, it's not running at the moment. One thing about fountains, you know, they're in a commercial, there's a lot of maintenance.
There's a lot of maintenance.
And one problem, I wish I got a little bit earlier on the designing, but they put gravel around this, and children love to put the gravel in the fountain, and it'll mess up some things. So
That's kind of funny.
Yeah,
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So don't never put gravel around fountains. So, you know, or rocks or anything like that. And then right over this way, we'll go to on our last remaining area is our German and Czech Heritage Garden. And this is right here, this area where we have our windmill and stock tank. And we have a little bit of a vegetable garden going here as well. It's kind of a 4-square design, which the Dutch and the Germans kind of brought that over to when they were settling here to the United States, or colonizing the area. They brought this idea of 4-square garden where you have a fenced-in area to keep your livestock out, and then you have 4 squares, so it gives you good, easy access to maintain it. So anyway, we're just trying to grow some calico corn, multicolored ornamental corn out here. So this way for our fall festival coming up in October. So, but anyway, swings, that's a nice little favorite.
Done a nice job here.
So the pines here
really.
actually are from the Bastrop area. So these are from the Lost Pines region of Texas. So not necessarily from East Texas, but from the Lost Pines. And those trees are very adapted to drier soils, more alkaline, rockier soils. These are loblollies.
And you think the loblollies in the Lost Pines area do better than the loblollies in East Texas?
Well, just because I think they're just better adapted.
So you think they've actually evolved? They've actually changed? Interesting.
So and so there's a little difference in their their adaptation, and so because obviously the ones in East Texas need higher lower pH, sandier soils, but Bastrop is rockier and a little more alkaline, a lot more alkaline. So but these were actually the Texas Forest Service actually collected these seeds a while back ago, studying them, seeing what the differences are in between. And then they were pretty much done with the study. And then when the fires came about in Bastrop area in 2011, they actually, instead of throwing out the seeds, which we were about to do, they kept them and actually spread them out to different, gave them to different growers and so on. And they germinated a lot of these seeds to reforest the Bastrop area, the Lost Pines area. And so that's what these trees came from that seed bank that they had. So
I did not know that about the same tree.
Same tree,
but it's just
same genus species, but it's just adaptation.
It's really interesting
how it evolved. So, but
kind of go back to my saying earlier that things do evolve.
They do evolve.
You can't argue with it.
And we're all adaptable. I mean, even humans, we all adapt. So have a little bit of fruit trees over here. This is something that we're just, fruits are hard to grow here in the Bryan-College Station area in the Brazos Valley just because of our climate and weather and soils and water. And so we're trying different things here. We did some peaches, but they're not really long-lived for us. We're actually doing some bananas here. These are actually pretty much root hardy bananas, so they'll kind of withstand our weather. They'll actually, winters, they'll actually die back to the ground. But we're trying these out because these are supposedly earlier bearing bananas. So hopefully we can get a crop of bananas before winter sets in.
Okay.
And so we just planted these, so they're still a little bit young yet. But then over in the distance, we got jujubes, some low chill apples, figs, apricots, things like that over there. Guavas.
Yeah. I get asked all the time about fruit trees in Texas and people. I'm like,
they're hard.
Because everyone says that
it's
Texas, we get all the sun. We should have, typically the sun creates fruit, and I'm like, it's the soil and the water.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're
yeah.
very difficult to grow. I'm not saying you can't, but they're difficult to grow here. It's sad. But
And this area right here is actually one of our newest areas that we just kind of renovated. This was actually a wildflower area. And so, but again, this time, August, September, wildflower areas just don't look really nice. And so, especially next to the pavilion, which is the structure over there, that's one of our rentable spaces for, events like receptions and luncheons and things like that. And so, we just felt that we just needed something a little bit nicer. And so what we did was still kind of keep it that natural look, but using, some of these grasses, some of our native grasses that we have, as well as like buffalo grass. And so that's one thing we did not have in the garden, to teach the different varieties of grasses is buffalo grass. So we just actually sodded this last Friday, so last week. So it's brand new. So, but yeah, so
you should just have to water it until established, and then you're done.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Exactly. And the reason why we kind of went this way, because we have a utility in this area that they actually come in here and maintain and so on, step in here. And so again, we just want to work with that and not work against it. And actually that's a manhole. Actually, they pump water out from time to time. And so, but anyway, and then we'll head on back over to the pavilion. So, and then the pavilion structure is kind of really neat. It's octagon shaped, actually inspired by the Germans. When they were settling here in Texas, they built polygon shaped buildings like this. And they use them for, community centers or churches or dance halls. And then, and there's still several from that time period still around. There's one over like Cat Spring, Sealy, Belleville. Fredericksburg is fortunately is rebuilt because the original one burnt down. But they and same thing one in Galveston too as well. But it's a neat structure. Again, it's one of our rentable spaces. And so phase two. Speaking of phase two, also we'll have another building in phase two as well. So.
And this water's collected?
No, it's not. So this water is not collected here, but we do have rain collection, over in our vegetable garden. We do have a little bit there, but this here, problem was with here is the volume of water. And we just, for us to capture and retain that volume, it will be some pretty large cisterns. Over in the AgriLife complex back in the distance, there's some large cisterns there. There's 4 of them there that holds about 9,000 gallons each. And then there's a 40,000 gallon tank down in the ground. And we're collecting rainwater there and HVAC condensate.
Okay.
And so, because like if you go there now, a nice humid day like today is, you'll hear the water going in those tanks. So phase two, we're looking into capturing that water and utilizing it, because that water is really utilized around that landscape, around that complex, and it's mostly grass or turf, and turf can tolerate our water. And so, but we'd like to do some more ornamentals over in the new phase two, and so that mixing that rainwater in with our domestic water will help a lot and be able to kind of have a little more success with that. So.
Joseph, you've been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very
Thank you
good.
for having y'all.